The town of Ashwood had many stories, most of them whispered behind closed doors on stormy nights. But none were as chilling as the tale of Deadman's Bridge, a crumbling, moss-covered relic that arched over Blackthorn Creek. The bridge was older than anyone could remember, its iron railings rusted and its planks warped and groaning under the weight of time. Locals claimed the bridge was cursed, haunted by something far older and far darker than the town itself. They said that if you stood beneath it when the clock struck midnight, you could hear whispers from a world not meant for human ears. Sophia didn't believe in ghost stories. At 17, she prided herself on her skepticism. She was the rational one in her group of friends, always quick to dismiss anything that couldn't be explained by science or logic. So when her best friend Ethan dared her to spend the night under Deadman's Bridge, she laughed and agreed without hesitation. "It's just an old bridge," she said, rolling her eyes as they stood at the edge of the forest that led to Blackthorn Creek. "What's the worst that could happen?" Ethan smirked, adjusting the flashlight in his hand. "Don't say I didn't warn you. They say the demon under the bridge doesn't like skeptics." Sophia shook her head. "Demons aren't real." But as they ventured deeper into the forest, following the winding path to the bridge, an uneasy silence settled over them. The towering trees seemed to close in, their gnarled branches twisting like skeletal fingers against the twilight sky. The only sounds were the crunch of their footsteps on the leaf-strewn ground and the distant murmur of the creek. When they finally reached Deadman's Bridge, the sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving the world bathed in a cold, silvery glow. The bridge loomed before them, a jagged silhouette against the rising moon. Its planks creaked softly in the wind, and a strange smell, like damp earth and decay, hung in the air. Ethan turned to Sophia, his grin faltering. "You sure about this?" Sophia squared her shoulders. "Positive. Let's get this over with." They descended the muddy embankment to the underside of the bridge, where the shadows seemed thicker, more oppressive. The creek gurgled softly, its dark waters glinting like liquid obsidian. The air was colder here, sharp and biting. Ethan set up the flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness and casting long, flickering shadows on the bridge's weathered underside. Sophia settled onto a patch of dry ground, pulling her jacket tighter around her. "So what now? Do we just sit here and wait for your imaginary demon to show up?" Ethan shrugged. "Pretty much. But they say you have to be quiet. The demon doesn't like noise." Sophia rolled her eyes but said nothing. The minutes stretched into an hour, and the silence grew heavier, pressing down on them like a physical weight. The only sounds were the gentle lapping of the creek and the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. Sophia fought to stay awake, her skepticism battling against the creeping unease that clawed at the edges of her mind. Then, just as the clock struck midnight, the whispers began. At first, they were so faint that she thought she was imagining them, soft, sibilant murmurs that seemed to rise and fall with the wind. But as the seconds ticked by, the whispers grew louder, more distinct. They weren't in English or any language Sophia recognized. They were guttural and otherworldly, like the sound of rocks grinding together underwater. Ethan's face went pale. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. Sophia nodded, her heart hammering in her chest. "It's just the wind," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. The whispers grew closer, circling them like a predator stalking its prey. The flashlight flickered, its beam sputtering weakly before plunging them into darkness. Sophia scrambled for her phone, fumbling with trembling fingers to turn on the flashlight app. But before she could, a low, rumbling growl echoed from beneath the bridge. It was not a sound any human or animal should have been capable of making. It was deep and resonant, vibrating through the ground and into their bones. The air turned icy, and the smell of decay intensified, making Sophia gag. "Ethan," she hissed, her voice trembling. "This isn't funny. If you're messing with me." "I'm not," Ethan whispered, his voice barely audible. "We need to leave, now." But before they could move, something emerged from the shadows. It was a shape at first, just a dark, formless mass that seemed to absorb the faint moonlight. Then it began to solidify, taking on the shape of a man, tall and impossibly thin, with elongated limbs that ended in claw-like fingers. Its skin was as black as coal, cracked and oozing with a tar-like substance. Its face was featureless, save for two glowing red eyes that burned like embers in the darkness. Sophia froze, her breath caught in her throat. The figure stepped closer, its movements jerky and unnatural, like a marionette controlled by invisible strings. The whispers grew louder, deafening now, and Sophia realized they were coming from the figure itself. Its mouthless face split open, revealing rows of jagged teeth, and the whispers became a scream, a sound so horrific it felt like it was tearing her soul apart. Ethan grabbed her arm, yanking her to her feet. "Run," he shouted. They scrambled up the embankment, slipping on the muddy slope as the demon's screams echoed behind them. Sophia didn't dare look back, her only focus on the narrow forest path ahead. Branches clawed at her face and arms as she ran, her lungs burning with each frantic breath. The whispers followed them, growing fainter but never fully disappearing. By the time they reached the edge of the forest, the first light of dawn was creeping over the horizon, bathing the world in a soft, golden glow. They collapsed onto the ground, gasping for air, their bodies trembling with exhaustion and fear. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ethan broke the silence. "Do you still think demons aren't real?" Sophia shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know what that was, but we're never going back there. Ever." Ethan nodded in agreement, his face ashen. "Agreed." But as they stood and began the long walk back to town, Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that they hadn't truly escaped. The whispers still lingered at the edges of her hearing, faint but insistent. And in the back of her mind, she knew the demon under Deadman's bridge was not finished with them. Not yet. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button, it really helps us out. And don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Tap the bell to stay notified whenever we post a new video. Thanks again, and see you in the next one.